For now we see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, BTB. Conversating with the man just so it don't feel I'm talking to myself, okay? Bro, I think I got a plan, okay? Think I might need your help, okay? All my brothers from the cold, okay? Seeing cold niggas melt, okay? I ain't telling on me.
You are now tuned in to the BTB Grilla Zone. How y'all doing today, Troop Squad? You are here with your host, BTB Swaggy, along with
BTB Grilla, Johnny bring the bass,
And today we got some more reaction. We got some more content for y'all. Craziness. The world is changing.
Terrence Howard.
In a way. Terrence Howard, the man that's, what would I say, the man that's sounding crazy, or is it like sounding a little logical?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that it sounds crazy because things that are different tend to sound crazy, whether they're right or wrong.
Especially when you've been, like I said earlier off camera, especially when you've been like indoctrinated for so long to follow one specific formula that even when you see it at work, you see niggas that's following the rule book at work, and then when a nigga do something else, they be indoctrinated to following those rules for so long that they be calling him crazy.
Yeah,
like, man, that nigga crazy.
It works better and it ends up becoming the new system that gets adapted. See, that'd be the part, not when people go outside of the norm for no reason, but when people go outside the norm and it doesn't work, then it ain't about shit. But when people go outside the norm, and that's where we get this innovation from and that new way of thinking, then it's like that shit goes from sounding crazy to, this is that inventor fucking, he's dead and gone, and we looking back like this was the inventor or the person who said ... Yep. That's how it normally goes.
Yep, literally. And before you wonder what we talking about, Troop Squad, we are gonna dive straight into it. Please, just go into this with a open mind, I would ask. And pretty much, just open your mind and expand. And I'm hoping that you could take away from some of the things that he said, even if you don't think that he's 100% correct and you still think he is crazy. That is your opinion to believe, but I just ask that you just come here with an open mind regardless of your thinking. And so without further ado, we are going to jump straight into it. Before that, of course, man, make sure y'all go check out the BTB Revolution. Make sure y'all go check out the store at btbrevolution.com, man. And I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. But I'm sure it will come to mind during the video.
You know what's one of the other obvious benefits of the emergence of this space is well-educated people having brilliant and interesting conversations. The conversation between Joe Rogan and Terrence Howard is pretty surprising, isn't it? Because conversations like that remind us that now everyone's pretty well informed when it comes to, for example, spike proteins or cellular formation or the impact of gene therapies. Look at this conversation between a stand-up comedian podcaster and an actor and note how implausible that would have been 10 years ago. And it's because, in fact, as is acknowledged in the clip, of the conversations that Joe Rogan started, or at least amplified, and that we continue to participate in. What you recognize when a conversation like this takes place is that without the censorship industrial complex, without the ongoing legitimization of controlling what sort of information you get access to, centralized power cannot be victorious. Because when you have actors and comedians casually chatting about the dangers of gene therapy and spike protein, which the WHO treaty is designed to prevent going forward, you recognize that what we have in our hands now is seismic. We have the technology and the ability to create new localized democracies to challenge for the first time the great minotaurs, the great monoliths of centralized power. And it's all come in that most extraordinary form, the podcast. In this case, in the conversation between Joe Rogan and Terrence Howard. Just notice how extraordinarily high the standard of conversation is and the amount of information and standard of information that's being conveyed and exchanged here. It's astonishing.
All right, now bring up the John where it's actually Terrence talking and shit like that video.
They listen to everything.
A good intro into the interview. Now bring up the actual right there. Yeah, bring up that one. Now let's go.
Awaken to a world of wonder in Final Fantasy XIV Online.
And it's just collecting.
But it also showed me the bizarre state of human psychology. That people, if
Targaryens are gone.
Burn them all! Not all. Intention was to rebuild the periodic table, build a new periodic table. Because the stuff I had learned in college, I went to school for chemical engineering the first year over at Pratt. And they, at the time, I think it was like 108 elements. And I told the teacher, the professor, about the relationship between hydrogen on the spectrometer and carbon and silicon and cobalt. And I was like, it's the same exact color, same tone, just doubled in each octave. And he was like, no, each element is the same element and it will always be that element. And I was like, you don't see the relationship. So I left school and I was going to spend 40 years rebuilding the periodic table. And I found out that Walter Russell had already did that. And he did it based upon the natural curvature of everything.
And when you say rebuild the periodic table, what do you mean specifically?
Well, the way the periodic...
And Troop Squad, for those of you... Excuse me. For those of you who don't know who Walter Russell is, I'm pretty sure I'll put it somewhere on the screen, but he was a famous artist who I'm going off of personal assumption was just his side job. Him getting into this was just like a side job, but his main source was he was an artist because he painted, but he got into this as basically like a little gig, and now this is what it's turned into.
The table is laid out. The periodic table they have now.
Let's see.
It looks like a box.
Image of it.
It looks like a straight box.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't show the relationship that between every element, there's two
All right, here's the periodic table.
You'll see hydrogen sitting all the way over there by itself, but they don't show that hydrogen has the same tone as carbon.
What do you mean by tone?
Same tone, same key of E. Same key of E. 40.5 hertz. The next one would be like 81 hertz. You go to silicon, it will double up and would be 162 hertz. You'll go to cobalt and it'll be 324 hertz. It's, in that base, if you were to take the angles of incidence or the tones that they create, their color, like you can turn color back into sound based upon, it's the same wavelength, it's just twice as long or much longer. So
that part right there, I wanted to stop it real quick because that is the most, or not, if not one of the most controversial clips that has clipped him saying color is sound. Color is sound. I'm genuinely confused on what does he mean by color is sound. I've tried to put it in all different types of ways. My mind can't wrap around it. So I'm thinking, maybe Grilla can give us some insight, maybe on what he, on what does he mean? Color is sound.
I mean that part, like I said, I don't know all the depths of it, but that it's been known for a long time that that color and tones have a relationship. But I don't know the exact ins and outs about it. But yes, I've heard that sound and color have a relationship. So But yeah, no, I think the really crazy part, or I think like the part that's like hard to understand for what people are thinking is like the elements. People are saying that the elements are the elements no matter what. And if you're looking at the elements for what they are, then yes, that's what the elements are, because that's how we perceive them. That's what we see them as. That's what we call them. That's how it is. But everything has a breakdown, and there's different ways to look at a lot of different things. So being as though he's saying, I feel like he's saying that they emit a color from what I'm getting, that and color give off different tones and different sounds. I feel like he's saying it's a different way to be looking at things as far as in the periodic table, and not just looking at it as the elements.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask, because even that explanation would have been way better than me just saying, nigga, I don't know what he mean. You know what I'm saying?
I could be wrong, but you know, if he sees this, then he can say, you know, nah, look, that's about the you know what
that's
I mean?
about the gist of it. And even then, it's like, even if you are wrong though, you giving out that explanation in general is, like I said, it's way better than me saying like, shit, I don't know what he mean. It's way better than me saying I don't know. So even for you giving that explanation, I mean, even if you are wrong, it's an explanation that you was giving.
If you don't know, you're supposed to say, I don't know.
You feel me?
You know what I'm
so
saying?
I can't sit here and play like I know.
You know, that's what I'm saying. Like that's my general idea from the information that I've come across. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see.
Well, all you have to do is keep dividing light by 2.
Keep that up, Jimmy.
You keep dividing light by 2, and you'll ultimately.
The math part?
Yeah, find the math part.
Our senses, our eyes see 0.05% of the entire electromagnetic wave. We're blind cosmically, but we judge everything by what we see. And they've done that with science for so many years. You look at E equals MC squared. That talks about expansion. It does not show how it's divided. If ever you've never breathed in twice without breathing out.
Ah, there it is.
You breathe in and you breathe out.
Apartments.com has the most pet-friendly listings.
Pet-friendly listings.
I just taught him that.
And so now.
All right, Troop Squad. So now we are on Terrence Howard's on why 1 × 1 = 2. Yes. 1 × 1 = 2. It's basically his view on math and what he thinks about it. And so this is why I asked you to come into it with a open mind, real quick, just so you know what I'm saying. I know you've been learning the same 1 × 1 is 1, but let's just, you know what I'm saying, even though 1 × 1 = 2 sounds crazy, just open your mind as to this quick explanation of his version of math.
And so now what I would love to do is invite Neil deGrasse, any astrophysicist, any chemist, anyone in any field of science, to sit down with me and examine these patterns, examine the supersymmetrical systems that I've developed. So I reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I saw him at an event up front, at Fox. And he was like, hey, man, yeah, I'd love for you to come on my show, do my radio, do my TV thing. I would love that. I was like, yeah, but I've got something I want to introduce to you. And it was only 30 seconds.
Hold on, because that was a little fast. Terran wave fields. The illusion of our visible universe is constructed of regenerated successive ways of predictable phase conjugations linked in recursive action and reactionary moments. So I just had to pause this real quick, Kuchwa, so that way y'all can read it.
Yeah, but I've got something I want to introduce to you.
Also pausing this so you could read it real quick.
And it was only 36 pages. It was a treatise. And I told him it was controversial, and I sent him over the 36-page thing that had the wave conjugations in it, but I started it off with 1 times 1 equaling 2. And he went in on my treatise, redlined everything. He attacked that I had talked about Walter Russell and Victor Schauberger and John Keeley and Tesla as the people that I looked up to. Mm-hmm. He attacked them, but then he started attacking, the 1 times 1 equaling 2. Because I asked him, I said, under what conditions? I said, it's illogical where the square root of a number added to itself will equal more than that number squared. But that's what happens with the square root of 2. That's what happens with most of the numbers. I was like, how is it that multiplication, if it means to make more and increase a number, how is 1 times 1 equaling 1 part of the multiplication table? Now, I understand that if you're seeing it one time, but we call that once. But the moment that you add the times in there, that multiplicative indicator, that means there's more than 1. So now each equation is supposed to be balanced. That equal sign is supposed to show that there's a balance between these 2 numbers over here and a balance on this one over here. What happened to the other one in this equation?
So basically saying 1 times 1 doesn't exist.
1 times 1 doesn't exist?
Because it's only once. Like, the way that they're doing it, like, you know what I mean? Like that. I kind of, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of makes sense because, like you're saying, times means something different. You know what I'm saying?
It's like 1 times this. I could see that.
It's
I
like
can see that.
saying subtraction, but you're doing addition type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like that don't make sense because it's not. You can't time something if you're only saying that there's one of them. Then there's only one of them. Then you're not multiplying shit.
Right. That's why I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that makes fucking sense. It does make fucking sense. I mean, I don't know. I'm high right now.
It's just like, bro, I'm not the smartest in the world, so it's like from the stuff that I've been learning as a kid, me looking at this version, it's like obviously everybody wants to say, yeah, he's talking crazy, but it's like, let's say even if he is talking crazy, he's showing and explaining some shit, and he's giving it has a logical explanation. Now I get that some words or some sentences may not even exist because of just the way he say it, or you know what I'm saying. It's just in his mind that's a word.
That's the only way to describe it.
Right.
It hasn't. It's not here.
Right, but looking at it from outside looking in, it's like, okay, I can see how that makes sense. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say, nah, bro, you crazy. Do you have some points? You make some good points, but that's coming from me as a nigga who's not, I'm not the smartest man in the world. Somebody like Neil deGrasse could possibly, you know what I'm saying? He could probably do that all day. Immediately, you know what I'm saying, turn him away. But for me personally, yeah, nah, I gotta take a minute and digest this because some of it makes sense.
It makes sense to take a minute and digest. Let's see what else this man got going on. Some interesting shit.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna lie. I like to think outside the box.
Ain't nothing wrong with it.
He was like, well, Tesla stuff worked, but Tesla was never really respected and out there. And I guess he wanted me to support Bohr or Schringer or Feynman or any of those people. And I'm looking at the Feynman diagrams. I'm like, you made all these things up. You're basically doing the Mr. Spock thing. If you want to find the answer to something, then you cancel out all the possibilities. All other possibilities, and you root it down to one thing. So that means going through the whole universe to answer one question. And that's the problem with probability. That's the problem with Heisenberg uncertainty. That's the problem with Schrodinger. All of those were just these probabilities because they had taken the ether out. They forgot the electromagnetic wave. It had to have a medium in which it followed on. It had to have something in which it was moving on. It cannot be the cause of its own action. An effect can never be the cause of the action. And what Einstein left out was the equal and opposite of magnetism. So back to Neil deGrasse, when he wrote his response to my paper, and he said, if you have any other questions, you're going to have to see somebody else, and he wouldn't take my calls anymore. I was like, okay, so I wrote the book based off of those responses. The reason I wanted to talk to him was because of his show, The Cosmos. The very first episode he had was talking about Giordano Bruno. Mm-hmm. And he said that Giordano Bruno was looking for that grand unified field equation, and maybe one day somebody is going to do it. And when they do it, it's going to change the world. And I'm like, dude, I've done it. I've got it here. He attacked it with such vitriol that I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to walk away from this. Dr. David Tong from Cambridge, a professor at Cambridge, did a video on physics of the world, and he said it's all a lie. And he explained that there was these 16 fields, and they gave the best understanding and interpretation that they had of it. But it was all a lie because they didn't understand how it worked. Why? Because the Michelson-Morley experiment from 1887, where they were trying to define the ether or the earth in this etheric space. Problem was, they kept with Newtonian laws, so they thought the ether didn't move. They thought it was still, because they could not get out of the ether. They couldn't step outside of the ether because it's everything around us. So they couldn't tell a difference, whether they saw no result, no change. So they assumed there was a void, that there was no ether there. And that's when particle physics took off. Lorentz, a great physicist that everybody loved, entered a paper in 1904 where he was continually explaining the ether the same way that Maxwell, all of his theories came off of there being an ether, but he was still limited by Newtonian laws and the Coulomb force of opposites attracting. When it's the positive, it's the things that are alike that attract. But he believed that the ether was still and the space was flat. And so Einstein relativity came as a result of them taking the ether away. And for 100 years, we've walked down this particle physics world that's all theoretical. And here I've patented these wave conjugations that is the ether, is the contraction of the ether and the expansion of it. And on top of that, the proof of it was I've been able to build new industries from it. And so now what I would love to do is invite Neil deGrasse and David Tong, or any astrophysicist, any chemist, anyone in any field of science, to sit down with me and examine these patents, examine the supersymmetrical systems that I've developed. We've been fooled by our senses. Our eyes see 0.05% of the entire electromagnetic wave. We're blind cosmically, but we judge everything by what we see. And they've done that with science for so many years. You look at E equals MC squared. That talks about expansion. It does not show how it's divided. If ever you've never breathed in twice without breathing out. You breathe in and you breathe out. You charge and you discharge. They're acting as if the universe is just expanding out, breathing out, and it's going to dissipate out, and they never include the contractive side of it, breathing in.
So I'm kind of getting an idea of what he's explaining. That's a gem, and it makes sense. You would never breathe in twice without breathing out. You feel me? You're not going. You feel me? Like it's just a second nature to breathe in and breathe out, and
it's a balance to things.
You feel? And it plants to see, like, yeah, if the universe is expanding, and if you're comparing it to a breathe out, breathe in situation, then yeah, how is this junk just expanding and not contracting back in?
Right.
Like,
right.
it definitely gets my brain moving, and so this is why I like this kind of shit.
For sure.
because they were misled by Newton, who said everything moves in a straight line unless affected by something else. And we know that not to be true. But they built the entire two-dimensional plane, the Euclidean space that we live on, that we work on, that we try and define curved nature by two-dimensional space, and we never include the curvature, the breathing in. Like, everything has to have the balance, the electric side and the magnetic side. Remember the Michelson-Morley experiment? They were trying to prove whether there was an ether or an effect of an ether, or the quintessence that everything came from. That used to be called the fifth element, that everything that from antiquity, everyone understood that something doesn't come out of nothing. It's like when you look at the air, it looks clear, but you change the pressure condition. The balance of the change of pressure condition, we call that condensation. It creates clouds. And you change the motion conditions, whether it's moving quickly or slowly, it's going to become snow, it's going to become rain, it's going to become hell. So everything comes down to just one of two forces. Either you're breathing in and filling up something, or you're pouring it out. But the scientists, they ignored Walter Russell's work because he didn't include any equations inside of it. He talked philosophically regarding how things behave in comparison to laying down and following some Newtonian or calculus writing. He said he based things based on, let's explore them naturally. And that's what I did with my book. Once, what Walter Russell was missing, he didn't have the wave conjugations. He didn't have the mirror shapes, the all shapes. And that was because of a mistake that was made 6,000 years ago, maybe. They took the flower of life, which was that symbol. Instead of following the natural curvature of these 64 circles overlapping, they averaged the space where they met. And they invented straight lines because they believed that the world was flat, because that's how they thought everything came down to, straight lines. They thought the world was flat. And I was like, oh my goodness. They didn't open the flower properly. Why don't you just take the pieces that make up the flower and put them together based on universal ratios? So this is the juxtapose of the mistake they made. I took 4 of those triangles. This is what happens when 4 bubbles.
Okay, I got it. All right, that picture there even helps put it back into perspective. So those shapes and shit is like if that fucking flower wasn't flat, if it was actually a flower, he's building the flower up, and those shapes are the spaces of where those circles wouldn't be touching each other.
And he's saying they
That's
made
the
straight
void.
line.
They were saying there wasn't nothing there.
Okay. And he's saying no, it is. You just have to include the curves, basically.
Right, like you was everybody's looking at it flat.
Because straight lines, yeah.
Right, like, oh, that shit, now look, I ain't saying the nigga right.
But it makes you think.
To even look at some shit like that, because we got a different technology now. So imagine having something that's flat like this, and then being able to take that bitch and pull it up and look at it. You know what I'm saying? From that dimension. And then you got all of these circles and stuff that are 3-dimensional, and these spaces and stuff in between are actually making shapes and stuff, because they all connect.
Yeah.
So, alright, I'm with you so far. I got you so far.
Terrence on some shit, man. I ain't gonna lie.
I still don't know exactly what the fuck is going on, but I'm with you though.
This is the negative space where they can't touch each other. This is hydrogen. And as I was saying, electricity is always trying to get to the center of that triangle, but it gets pushed out. And now you see it has 4 contractive poles, which is the electric poles. It has 4 contractive poles because electricity is seeking a higher pressure condition and forcing it in, where magnetism is seeking a lower pressure condition and spun out. So the vortices, those tips, that's the magnetic field. That's where they begin. But it has an equal attractor and an equal amount of repulsion. They gave me the patents to that. I called that the tetryon. So if you go to what happens when 8 bubbles meet. This is the negative space where 8 bubbles meet, but you'll notice it has 8 contractive poles, but it only has 6 magnetic poles, 6 vortices, so it has a greater electrical potential than a repulsion. So maybe this is the strong nuclear force, and the previous one was the weak nuclear force. So I was like, okay, I called this the Huntian after my son. So I was like, what happens when 6 bubbles meet? Now you see that it has these huge bubbles, fast moving, but there's 6 strong spheres that's going around this, but the greater attractor has grabbed the 2 weaker attractors. And this looks just like a photon, and guess what? It has 30 poles. This looks like what happens in nature. So I was like, okay, so they gave me the patents to this, but you'll see that there's 6 unaccounted.
Okay, so for the troop squads that are lost,
I'm saying, all right, so look, he's putting together the flower, right? Bubble by bubble in the essence of a group of bubbles by group of bubbles, right? So he started off and he showed everybody what it looked like when, 4 bubbles meet or whatever. And then boom, he's like explaining how the magnetic field works and all that stuff, Then he put together, what did he say, 8?
8.
Yeah, so he put together 8, and then it created the one big magnetic or power source or whatever that, magnetic field that drew the other 2 smaller ones to it. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it's just like putting together like the building blocks of how the flower, in the essence, can explain a lot of things and how similar it is to how things actually work. That's what I'm getting so far.
Electrical poles to it. So I was like, what happens when 12 bubbles meet? Another stable structure that we basically see in nature, but there's 4 unaccounted electrical poles to it. You'll see 1 at the bottom and 3 on those sides.
Yeah, so he's adding 4 every time. 4, 8, 12. 4, or, yeah, something like that.
This is the basis of crystallization, laws of crystallization that forms. And I was like, what happens when 24 bubbles meet? This is a negative space where 24 bubbles meet. This is where you cannot distinguish this from the background because all of the electrical potential has been accounted for. This would be the Bose-Einstein condensate where something becomes indistinguishable from the fabric of space itself, the final state of matter. And the proof of this, the platonic solids, they have a thing called discrete symmetry. You can put the cubes together, maybe you can put the dodecahedrons together, but you can't put all of them together. But you can take the wave conjugations right here, and they form supersymmetrical systems where everything aligns. What makes more sense? Where they
I get what he's saying with that. You get what he's saying with that?
Yeah, I say he was adding 4 and he wasn't adding 4, so.
No, I'm talking about like what he's saying about the shapes.
Oh, I don't. I had to clear it up real quick because remember, so I said, oh, he's adding 4. I was wrong as fuck. But what is he?
But no, I was saying with the shapes. He was saying like, all right, like you got triangles, squares, and fucking hexagons, whatever, all that shit, whatever that. He was saying like, no matter what, yeah, you could put them together, but at some point with using the shapes and stuff that you get from the lines that they drew from the flower and stuff, at some point it won't fit together all in symmetry, which means like it won't align evenly perfectly in some fashion. But with the way that he's doing it with the circles and stuff and the shapes that they create on the inside, it'll always create a symmetry of something. It'll always be equal. It'll always be symmetrical.
Okay.
I don't know if it means anything, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's saying. But I don't know what the fuck that really like means though. But I mean, it sounds like shit should be symmetrical.
They invented straight lines in opening the flower, or where you actually take the individual pieces of the flower and put it together based on universal ratios. Which one do you think is how the givers of that knowledge intended for us to use it?
On my mama, on my mama, on my mama, I bud with the llama.
Like I've said a number of times, You show me a real straight line in nature. Everything is expressed in motion. All motion expressed in waves. All waves were curved. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the greater the action, the greater the reaction. The greater the reaction, the greater the resistance. The greater the resistance, the greater the curvature. Because the universe is based off of equanimity, which Einstein left out in his theory of relativity, the balancing side of the gravity, Einstein left that out of his equation because he coupled electricity and magnetism together and didn't realize that electricity was the equal and opposite of magnetism. Electricity being the contractive field, you breathe in, that's a contractive thing. You breathe out, that's a magnetic thing, a radiative thing. But they use the term magnet as an attractor. But to magnify something means to what? Make it larger. Increase the space. That's the work of radiation. That's what Walter Russell was talking about all those years. That's the work of radiation. It's the electricity between the things that pull them together. The Coulomb force that supposedly opposites attract and push each other away. If that was true, then hot air and cold air would seek each other out. They're the same substance, but in a different state. They move in opposite directions from each other. The reason two magnets seem like the North Pole is attracted to the South Pole, because if you had two rivers or two holes with water coming out of them and you pointed them at each other, what are they going to do? They're going to be pushing against each other. But they align to where the male enters the female and is able to come out. Everything in the universe is just electricity. And we call it magnetism when it's devitalized, but it's still electricity. We call it the radiative side, it's the feminine side. And the contractive side is the positive, masculine side. It's a balance, and it's never been anything but that balance, and we've complicated it. You have all these physicists that's saying something different, but none of them have 97 patents. None of them have introduced a new form of flight with unlimited mid-air bonding. None of them have discovered 4 supersymmetrical systems. This is what we've done. This is what the collective is able to do when you put yourself into the divine space.
The collective sounds like a group. Sounds like a group, or could be some, information or term name for something. Yeah. I am absolutely mind fucked. So
man, that shit is some crazy shit, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely mind fucked.
I love that shit. I love sci-fi shit though, and the fact that I like it when people make it make sense, and it's like without understanding what he is saying, I can still make a lot of the interpretations and stuff make sense. I do agree with like that sense of like if shit is too complicated, then it's probably like so that you don't understand it.
Right.
You get me? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like we do overcomplicate things. You know what I'm saying? Because our senses are just what they are. You know what I'm saying? They're very dull and lame and can be tricked by any fucking moment. You know, our eyes can barely distinguish a AI fucking virtually created character on a TV screen from a real one. You know what I mean? Like real shit though. So
that shit like this just get your brain moving.
It do. I don't normally do a whole bunch of conspiracy theory stuff, but I don't feel like this is in the realm of conspiracy theory. I feel like this is more in the realm of either it can change everything and people can start looking at things literally outside the box. You know what I mean? And like I said earlier before, like shit, hell, we done went to curved TVs. We done went to back in the day, VR, when you used to look at VR and shit, like, it used to, like, pop out the screen a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? But that shit was kind of still pretty fucking flat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even when you see VR in the movies, it was a projector shooting out this motherfucking half-ass rounded, you know what I mean, projection. It's like now it's
well, they like even when the motherfucking Indians when they were like, how did they survive for so long and shit, and they had the tornadoes during the tornadoes and shit, and they like the houses was curved like in a round shape, and it was proven that the tornadoes would go over those type of houses, round curved shaped houses. But if your house was flat like a box shape, you were fucked. You were absolutely getting hammered by the tornado. But if your house was round, right, the tornado goes straight over.
It makes sense, but I feel like this, right? Because people say that, like, a lot of the videos I've seen that are doing the debunk thing on Terrence Howard, they are like saying, well, you know, we been knew that the world wasn't flat and this, that, and the other, bop, bop, bop. But it's like, has the math really changed that much? I feel like we don't build circle houses and round houses, and we can't build a lot of the things that were built back in the day. You notice that shit when you watch the History Channel, they're like, yeah, no, we still don't know how this pyramid was built or how they built this temple or dot, dot, dot. And it's like, maybe because we are doing the fucking math wrong. You know what I mean? Like, maybe because we are looking at things in the essence of, like, we're doing our math right because this is how we made the math. We are living in a world that we can't understand, a universe we can't understand, but we made a math and a system off of what we could interpret and what we could understand. And I feel like, you know what I'm saying, that's the easiest way to explain what's going on right now. If this shit is legit. But it damn sure feel right. I done came across a lot of shit that don't feel right. But nigga, I'm trying to tell you, I can picture that place where we look at the math and we look at, we stop looking at the math as much. And we look at it from what actually makes sense in nature. Nature wasn't built on math. Nigga, plants don't fucking come out the seed and say, hey man, look, 1 times 1 is not 2, it's 1, and we gonna grow in these spirals and these straights and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't work like that. So why do we work in such a formatted way and have a one-track way of thinking with it, is my opinion.
You know, like I said, probably because it's like, people have been like, you know, we've coming through the school system, we've been indoctrinated to a one-way thinking. When it comes to math, this is it's like we can all relate to being in school and the teacher is like, no, there's only one answer. Right. This is the only possibility to do it, to get that answer, and this is how you must go about it. Because we all come up with different answers where it get us thinking. Even the AP students come up with a different answer and they like, shit, that seems more logical. And then they bring it to the teacher like, no, that's wrong. And then they even damn near argue over the answer. Right. So it's like, we all come through the school system with one-way thinking when it comes to math, and we, even out throughout life, we are taught so much one-way thinking in school, though, that him coming out saying this, it's like, of course, it was bound to get a whole bunch of backlash. But I love it because not only does it make me think, but he has explanation to it. He has work to show for it. Yeah. He can actually show. He can name the people before him, their work, and how they.
He's not saying that he came up, but that's like the craziest part.
The biggest thing is they said he didn't invent. Terrence Howard didn't invent VR.
He's not saying that he came up with any like a lot of this shit. He's not saying that he came up with. When you really watch and interpret what he's saying, he's showing that he did not come up with a lot of this stuff. He's saying that he's looking at stuff that a lot of other people worked on. And then he looked at the stuff that people worked on that had more of a philosophy way of thinking, like he does, and added a 3-dimensional way of thinking to it, because we live in a different time now where we are thinking in a different way and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So whether, you know what I mean, from the bubbles thing as a child or whatever, if that, look, then maybe that's just an easier way for his mind to reference the understanding of how he's coming across this information. Maybe that really happened. I don't know. I know that shit feels fucking right to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like on some crazy shit. Like think about it like this: when you go into the motherfucking ocean and all that shit, what shape is everything that they send in the water? It's rounded, it's sphere, it's never straight, and you know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
never flat.
Bro, like it's nothing ain't ever.
It's always
flat.
a sphere.
So
or even when they send shit up to space. When have you ever seen them send up a fucking flat rocket ship or anything flat to space? Man, and it successfully got there. It's all sphered shit. Even when the rocket departs, or whatever the technical term for it is, but even when it departs and breaks up in pieces, and even the satellites when they shoot them out, they're sphere-like.
Even the crazy thing is yo, like down the crazy line of it is damn near our body is curved. You know what I'm saying? Like the way our body is even motion and curved and stuff. Like even I got that PSVR 2, the controllers for that are curved to your hand and shit. So even if you think about like how shit works with our spoons and stuff like that, we change the way we angle our body and change our body to use a straight fork. But the thing about if you had a fork that was curved, that had the curve and had the thing like that, like you wouldn't change your body to eat. You would just eat. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You would this fork right there, that bitch would be curved, and it would be right there, boom, and I would just eat, and that would be my natural motion of eating.
So
but
that's what it gives you.
But you would be thinking with a curved mind state to create something like that,
right? Which they would call you crazy for.
Right. I wouldn't have to do no math. And I think that's the part that pisses people off because the math science makes it make sense. But it's like, and I'm sure that you can get math to go with that eventually once you understand what you're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? But right now, a person that doesn't have the math for it saying that, yeah, nigga, I ain't got the math for it. I can't tell you why. But I can tell you this is what it is. Like,
yeah. It triggers the brain and thinking, bro.
I love that shit. That shit is
it.
wild, man. I hope that we can do something in the future with these patents and inventions and stuff. Or I would love for humanity to keep growing, and I feel like things like that would unify the people more. You know, with the people having the information, I feel like that unifies the people more because it puts a different, like I said, we can do different things. Mm-hmm. You know, you can just think about different things, even if that shit ain't even legit. People might think about different things. If one of y'all make that fork I was just talking about, I would like some royalties. You know what I'm saying?
I'm pretty sure, True Squad, that's really what we wanted to cover with y'all. The whole Terrence Howard joint. We wanted to cover that with y'all for sure.
Yeah. I gotta take a call, so I gotta go.
Yeah. True Squad, man. Y'all know it's all love. You've been chilling with the BTB Revolution, at the Grilla Zone. It's been your boy BTB Swaggy, along with BTB Grilla, man. We love y'all, man. Just be safe and keep it steady, man.
For now we see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, BTB. Conversating with the man just so it don't feel I'm talking to myself, okay? Bro, I think I got a plan, okay? Think I might need your help, okay? All my brothers from the cold, okay? Seeing cold niggas melt, okay? I ain't telling on me.